Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the second straight betting live stream of the day. I got my boy Eric, aka Slime Action. How we doing, Eric?
What's going on, everybody? Glad to be here again. I know you've been killing it, Ty, so hopefully we can keep on the hot streak rolling over here.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's definitely good variance, and it's been like the group and stuff. But yeah, no, I can sense, I'm glad you said that, we hope we keep doing good. I'm going to be honest. I can just betting is such like a variance thing. I don't know. I feel like we'd be fortunate to keep on killing it the way we're killing it because if we're being honest, we're probably not 20% ROI prop bettors, right?
Nah, I feel you, but everything's gonna come and go in waves. Like for example, last night I had a terrible bet at the end of the day. I bet something at minus 125, closed at like plus 112. So like I'm sitting there with a shitty ticket, like, oh fuck, like this one's probably a loser. And of a pretty crappy card I had yesterday, that was one of my few winners on like a bad bet. And like again, like you got to be self-aware enough to say, I made a bad bet. It's okay. It'll happen. We're all gamblers. Even the best of best make bad bets here and there. And I was fortunate that it ended up becoming a W instead of an L because it was undoubtedly unfortunately a bad wager, but it ends up being a W in the box score. But you got to be cognizant of those things if you really want to like improve your process and keep getting after it.
Yeah. So Eric, that's actually an interesting segment that I want to get into. Like, so is that how you define a bad bet? Like CLV, or because I know you as like a model better, I'm sure you have decent volume, right? And then you kind of just like bet mostly what your model says, what this is like a 10% ROI bet, so I'll bet it or something like that. Is that kind of how you go about it?
Yeah, that's exactly how I go about it. I think closing line value, like don't get me wrong, like I said for yesterday, like I had Malik Beasley under 4.5 threes made, right? I got it at minus 125, thought it was a great bet then. Close plus 112. Now, yeah, I do my modeling and make my own numbers. So when I see that, I'm just like, okay, my numbers tell me now I have a massive edge. I should probably double down. That being said, I know where I am in the betting ecosystem, right? I still have tons of respect for the market because the market makes up everything. So, in that situation, I said, I'm not going to double down. The market told me I made a bad bet. So it is what it is. Ended up winning, but he shot 14 threes, right? Went 3 for 14. So under his season average and higher volume than normal. So I definitely did get lucky there. So that was an example of a bad bet that won. Horrible closing line value, horrible in-game what actually happened, just happened to get to the scorers table. So I think that number one is closing line value. Like that's the best way to determine if you made a good or bad bet. But two, I think you have to also be hypercritical about what actually happened to get to the window in the game, because you could have a shitty read where you, like last night, he goes 14 threes over his median, only hits 3. That is a bad read and a bad line. It is a bad bet. It just happened to win. But say I would have bet his under and he would have taken, only 6 threes and I would have gotten 10 cents of line value the other way, then that's an amazing bet. And even if he went, 5 for 6, then you can sleep at night because you made a great bet. The game just still has to happen.
Yeah, for sure. I think about it the same way. I'm a little bit torn about CLV sometimes because as someone who, like, my process is game planning a little bit. A lot of the times it's like game planning, right? Like I like to put myself in the coach's shoes. And like, for example, a lot of the times, like the market will disagree with like a lean I have, and then I'll bet it anyways. Like, I just think there's a lot of stuff because apparently, I don't know if you know this, but one of my buddies, Pips, was explaining to me that a lot of the market is based off of established runs NBA projections. And to be honest, like I have I'm sure that established run is like very, very good at what they do. I know they are for football for sure, and I have like a lot of respect for their projections and stuff. But a lot of the times, projections just like can't, like a model can't, tell you what a coach is going to game plan. Like, for example, like Boston, if you look at spot up against Boston, right, you know how Boston kind of defends. They like to, stay home on shooters, but not every shooter is created equal. So if there's spot up guys who are deemed non-shooters, right, but most of the time they score based off of catch and shoot threes, but, teams don't respect them. Those guys will be like left wide open by teams like Boston, like teams like Houston. They'll get guarded by a center. There's teams like that who are very tactical with their game plans. like models will always like tell you that will push those guys' numbers down throughout the day. It seems like, and then so stuff like that. So yeah, I agree with you for the most. I think the biggest thing is like the process. It's like what you said with Beasley, right? Like he probably got lucky. He shoots 14 threes. I bet he probably hits like 6 of them with how he's been playing this year most of the time. And I think that's like the best way to judge bet, but also like shots all shots aren't created equal, right? Like what if Beasley took like a 2 end of quarter heaves and it's like, oh, you just look at it, it's like, okay, well those shots had like a 0.1% chance of going in. Like shot quality also matters a ton too. So I think it's just like kind of hard. I think there's actually a lack of like a good product out there in the space to justify there's a lack of product to justify results, out in the space. But I think, blindly looking at CLV and also CLV, Eric, there's like so many big accounts out here that like move lines and have like a ton of like members and stuff that I think like just genuinely for the most part like aren't really good bettors. I think like those guys have a lot of market influence too, and like that's probably like market influence that's like taking place right now and not like pre-tip, like how you were talking about like actual closing line, but there's also that too. So
no, there's definitely synthetic CLV where like if you're moving the line yourself, the question is like how impactful is your closing line value if like it's made off synthetic steam where you move the line yourself. It's not like you influence the market, so I guess you deserve some kudos for that, but the market can fight back. If you're getting, that's why I hate when people, or like I think there's a lot of people too that think they're trying to be like on the smarter edge and they talk about CLV and like say they bet something at 7 a.m. and at minus 110 right now, it's minus 120. They're talking about their CLV. There's no CLV. The line didn't close yet. You have line value as we speak, but for all you know, that line closes minus 105 in 12 hours from now. So you actually didn't get any CLV. So I think that's something big. But on that point, I do think that especially with like prop betting, there still is like a ball knowledge aspect that needs to like be considered. And I don't think it is as simple as, just your projections. With that being said, this is how I was taught closing line value, and this is what stuck to me ever since I heard this one quote. And essentially, like the market is a combination, especially if we're talking more like game lines rather than prop bets, but it is literally the sharpest sports bettors in the world, right? Like an NBA total or an NBA side, when there's $50,000 limits on a big game. Basically, the reason why I think or what resonated with me the most about CLV is because when you think about it this way, like the line at close, like right before tip, say it's, we're looking at Chris Dunn, say it's under, 16.5 PRA and the line's minus 110. If somebody with the best information out there looks at that line because it's up there all day and says, no, this is a bad bet, I am not betting it, then who the fuck do you think you are to be like, no, this is a great bet, I'm betting it? So I think everyone needs to like take a step back and like I always say, respect the market, because we're talking about people in most instances that are only betting offshore or in Vegas because they can't bet at these recreational books. Mm-hmm. They have hundreds of thousands of dollars to bet per day on given lines. And then if you're sitting there as somebody who just looks at outlier and is a $10 better and you say, no, like I'm smarter than like this line is here, like this is a good line, I have no way of quantifying it, I'm just saying it. But in reality, the line's been up literally all day, and professional people look at it and say, I'm not betting this shit. Then why the hell do you think you're good enough to bet that shit?
Yeah, no, that's a good point for sure. I don't know. It's just, you got to respect the market for sure. But at the same time, I think that if you got to get to a point where like you have to be super experienced with it. If you can get to the point and you can be that guy who, right before tip, you can be like, I'm the guy with all the information. I think that's what everyone should be striving for, right? Mm-hmm. You should be striving to be the guy with all that information where you can be like, no, this is a bad line.
Yeah.
But exactly. That's also really hard to get to. You got to put in a lot of work. And yeah. Okay, well, we can continue this topic a little bit later, but I do want to give out 2 plays. This one I hope didn't move. It was a FanDuel line. I know FanDuel will move quick to news, so if people were nuking it in the Discord, it might have moved a little bit. Let's see. We're gonna ask you for all your takes, and this one did move. Great. So I got this minus 125 at FanDuel. But Dorian Finney-Smith over 1.5 threes. FanDuel moved it about 30 cents. You can still. I said I like it down to minus 140, and I think I stand by that. So yeah, I think this is playable at DraftKings 365, MGM, BetOnline, ESPN Bet. So basically, Finney Smith, so no Rui Hachimura. He slotted into the starting lineup. He played 31 minutes in the first game, and then without Reeves, which maybe played a little bit into it, but 37 in the second game. Minutes are looking really good for DFS. I think 30 plus, maybe like 32, 33 is a good median for him here. But this is really a matchup thing. Obviously, he's playing alongside Luka and LeBron. He's going to get his threes up. So in games with Luka, let's see, he's averaging 4 threes a game, but these are all very high quality looks playing alongside Luka and LeBron. So it's like shot quality definitely plays a factor here. But the biggest thing is matchup. New Orleans Pelicans post All-Star break are allowing the highest catch and shoot frequency by a mile. All Dorian Finney-Smith does is like sit in the corner, sit maybe slightly above the break, and catch and shoot on offense, by the way. So, and the highest catch and shoot 3-point frequency by a mile too. So this is like the best matchup in the league for Dorian Finney-Smith. Another thing is like he's a big corner camper, so you always want to make sure with these corner campers, we can go here to Props Madness, go to player, and yeah, I mean 29% of his field goal attempts are corner threes, or points scored are corner threes. So I always want to check that out. And that's also, with the Nets too. So it's like, yeah, you go into a team with Luka and LeBron, you're going to end up sitting in the corner more. Last 10 games, Pelicans allowing the most corner threes attempted by a decent margin as well. Most makes by a decent margin. So they're probably pretty high quality looks as well. So yeah, I just don't think you can ask for a better matchup for DFS. You're going to, give them 30 minutes without Rui. Shot quality is going to be good playing alongside Luka and LeBron. I mean, see, this is like 30, but even with the Nets, he was hitting this. Obviously, maybe a slightly different role, but yeah, I want your take on like where you have this at and what you think about Dorian Finney-Smith to hit 2 threes.
Yeah, so I have projected 1.8. So I actually see the value just with pricing on the under, but looking at if I'm seeing the move correctly, because I'm at Outlier, which Outlier is a little bit slow. I'm seeing minus 150 now at FanDuel, minus 135 at DraftKings. So I think your rationale is correct, but I think that based on what we're discussing, that this is just another good talking point about how there are things that people, and I'm not like using you as like this example. I'm honestly generalizing more of like gambling, Twitter, and some of these cappers out there as well. Like people talk so much about matchups, but people also don't recognize that, yeah, maybe there are situations where you do truly understand a coach's scheme better than like the market at that time, and you can find value by cherry picking certain things. But I think this is a situation where you have a guy who literally shoots a median of 4 attempts over his last 5 games, that the matchup is priced in. It's giving a guy who has hit this number 1 time in the last 5 games, which again, I'm not saying hit rate matters, but when you're talking about a guy who's only taking 4 attempts, that now he's minus 135. I'm seeing at DraftKings, though it's probably slow. I'll pull up a quicker odd screen, but I think that's an indication that it's like, yeah, they're juicing the number because they know it is a good matchup, hypothetically, for Finney-Smith. That being said, doesn't mean it's not going to hit, nor does that mean you still can't like get some closing line value if you bet it now. But I think that's something that's worth mentioning is people like so often ignore the juice, right? Like I think I made this example last time, and I'll go to baseball quickly because I think it's easier. It's like you can have Aaron Judge, over 1.5 total bases at minus 250. I don't care if he hits 4 home runs. That's a terrible bet because of the odds are implying that he has a crazy amount of a crazy, probability of hitting over, 1.5 total bases. In this situation, yeah, a guy who has been very much so underperforming that metric in the last 5 and last 10 games, and with Luka, which obviously is the big key factor here, that now he's juiced to the over. Like, yeah, it could be telling that it's a good spot, it's a good situation. But at the same time, it could constitute looking at the under because the price is telling you that they're expecting him to go over. So it's just some food for thought. Just because the matchup's amazing, you still have to be cognizant of the price because the price is telling you how many times you need to win in order to break even. And yeah, maybe they're saying it's a better matchup because they're giving a guy who hasn't hit that number that frequently, higher odds to do so. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it's like a lock or a great bet. The actual good bet comes with fading the good matchup because the market itself is clearly anticipating the good matchup the same way the bettor is.
Yeah. One thing I will say is that Rui, so DFS is like, without Rui, is like his, like the last 5 stuff, I think Rui is like a big time like corner camper and he'll take a lot of shots. So I think that, if you're just like looking at the raw data without or with Luka, that Rui plays a big factor in taking away catch and shoot looks, taking away minutes and stuff. So I think that with the Rui aspect, which definitely is going to give him a minute bump and maybe even a slight volume bump, that combined with the matchup isn't factored. And I think FanDuel, like I said, just given that FanDuel moved 30 cents, I don't know if it's my Steam. It might be because actually, yeah, to be fair, it really might be. But yeah, I don't know. I also think that ladders are a good spot for Finney Smith here, right? If you're going by the matchup, it's okay. I just don't give out ladders. I probably will start doing that, in the future. But yeah, I think that this is a great ladder spot too, because 3-pointers with role players are always good to ladder if you think they have a good matchup. I don't know. What you think? You agree with that?
No, absolutely. I think role players are great. Obviously, again, you have to break down kind of what the price is because, say Rui over 3 threes was only -110. Then no, it's not a good ladder spot. But considering the price, it is. But I think I'll also make a good point because the situation I did now look without Rui. So yeah, I'm seeing more of your vision. And then now at this point, when you have Pinnacle sitting -142, you have FanDuel -154, who we know is the sharper one of the recreational books, and DK just at 135. Just by devigging at that point, if you aren't a projector, you would still see some value on this over at even -135. So I think you did get in at a good price. I think your thought process is correct. I was more talking overarching strategy rather than trying to bash the singular pick.
Yeah.
But no, I totally see where you're coming from, and it makes sense 100%.
Yeah. Okay, sweet. Let's move on to another play. And you gave an example, Chris Dunn under. I'm going over.
I was just looking at it. You had up.
Yeah. No, I always do that. I always give away the play. So this one didn't move at all yet. This is a niche one that I feel like people aren't really thinking betting on Chris Dunn. This one's very in-depth, right? So let's go here. I want to quick look him up first. Chris Dunn. And this is kind of where I started. So the Clippers are insanely shorthanded right now. They're without Derek Jones, who is, someone who could easily take away Chris Dunn's minutes because their service on the team is the same, right? They're elite perimeter defenders. They're elite point of attack defenders. They're without Ben Simmons, who plays backup point guard for them, plays backup center. They're also without Norman Powell, who hurt his hamstring last game after coming back. So he got into foul trouble first game, which is always a risk, right, when you're guarding one of the best players. But he only played 5 minutes and 30 seconds in the first half, and then so the second half was without Norman Powell, without Ben, obviously without Derek Jones. The dude played 21 minutes in the second half. So very small sample and stuff. But when you just think about personnel and what they lack. You can't have Harden, Zubac, Kawhi at this point where he's been through all these injuries. Bogey off the bench, he's a great shooter and stuff, but he plays no defense also. And it's Amir Coffey and stuff. So he played 21 minutes in the second half. I'm going to project. I'm not going to go ahead and be okay, he played 20 minutes in the second half. I'm going to project him for 40. I'm going to project him for 32 minutes. But with that being said, I think I'm lowballing it a little bit. So per 32 minutes in games with Harden, he's averaging 17.6 PRA. And if you just look at the Suns, right? I mean, just blindly look at the Suns, they are so bad on defense. They're allowing the second most points post All-Star break, the fifth most assists post All-Star break. Chris Dunn he's not gonna get anything ran for him, so you're gonna need some overhelping. And the thing that's most indicative about overhelping is catch and shoot frequency, in my opinion, because I mean, you get to a catch and shoot for the most part by overhelping and putting two to the ball and swing, catch and shoot, all that stuff. Mm-hmm. So Suns are allowing the 6th highest catch and shoot frequency post All-Star break, the 4th most makes. So I think that that's indicative, like I said, of overhelping, and that's how Chris Dunn's going to get shots. But in general, Chris Dunn just is not he's like a quote unquote non-shooter, so he's really not going to get guarded. And I'd assume that most teams kind of defend him like that. So yeah, just I think that this is a very solid matchup, a very above average matchup, and minute projections, all that stuff. I'd probably have this line at 18.5. So I see a little bit of value at -102 at this FanDuel number.
No, it makes sense to me. I like where your head's at. I like how you broke it down. You have a quantified number. You have a range to what you would play it at, and like you've clearly, thought it through and got into it. So no disagreements from me whatsoever. Always a little bit nerve-wracking betting on, like a role player, like you said, somebody who's not going to necessarily create his own shot or is just going to have to like score within the flow of the offense. But that being said, that absolutely happens on a nightly basis. So that's definitely not something to like ignore. And just generally speaking, there's always going to be more value on like unders of star players because obviously everybody's going to look to bet those, while somebody like Chris Dunn's going to see like lower overall volume from recreational bettors, though, sharper guys could obviously, pick up the same way you're picking it up. So no disagreements from me. My projection is right there at 17. So I do see some slight value to the over. So I'm with you here.
Sweet. Yeah. The one thing I want to say this is like just to everyone, this is my best NBA season by a mile. And one thing that I've changed up about my process is basically all my bets are on role players, because if you just think about it, dude, like there's no way that like the star players, like, they'll get listed at Pinnacle earlier. They'll get listed on Prizepicks and stuff earlier. Like, not saying that like Prizepicks is like, super, it's just like peer-to-peer and stuff. But like those things, people bet way more on them on popular players, right? So just by default, those numbers are going to be more accurate. And I think that, and so star player unders, like as soon I rarely bet star player overs. And that is like the thing about my process that I think that has really led to me having the most success this year, because I know I'm betting on less accurate lines when I'm betting on Chris Dunn and Dorian Finney-Smith threes and stuff like that. Like those lines are just not going to be as naturally as correct because there's not as much like high limit stake going into them and stuff.
Yeah, like you hit the nail on the head. It's literally true. Most professional bettors are making their most money, backing role players and fading stars. I forgot who else following, but respected bettor in the space was talking about his like profit loss in the year and how he only had like 2% of his bets for the whole year last year were on bets that were overs of like, the star players in the leagues of the world, right? Like the way you laid it out is absolutely correct. More people are interested from a public perspective. They're easier to price because the usage is more static and like you can understand what's going on. And then again, people want to bet them, so they're going to be taking tons of action on the over, and they're going to be the sharper lines on the prop side for star players. So to get an edge, look for those role player mismatches and look to fade. I know it sucks betting, Luka under because he can destroy it at any point. But again, if you look at his props.cash chart or his props managed chart on Luka, you're going to see a bunch of unders there because it happens, right? It absolutely happens.
Yeah, for sure. I will say Luka, a lot of these games were just like insane, like poor shooting performances. I actually bought the dip on Luka threes last game at plus 120 against the Clippers, and that's like the one example of like a star over I think that I've gotten a win on this year.
Yeah, exactly. And again, there's no like hard fast rules, right? Like if you kind of notice those situations where you're getting a discount after some shitty performances, then you have to relook at what happened those games. If it was, if the guy's still shooting 25 attempts a game, but he's going 5 for 25, but his point line is set at 22.5, but he's shooting 20 plus shots over his last 10 games, odds are it's probably they're going to start falling.
Yeah, for sure.
Speaking of star player overs, though, and I know I've been sitting here talking about like better gambling and whatnot, but I have a star player over that I want to give out right now.
Okay, let's hear it.
I'm going with the squarest bet of all time, but I know that it's going like I'm betting it. Like I think it's actually still a good price. I'm going Steph Curry over 36.5 PRA, and there's something about betting on the legends in Madison Square Garden, and I hate that I'm sounding so square when I'm saying this, but there's some truth to it. Like he does an amazing job going at specifically in New York City, being one of the premier basketball destinations of the entire world. We know people like LeBron when they play in the Garden. Like earlier this year, I had his over PRA. He absolutely flew by, had a triple double, and it is honestly something about Madison Square Garden being a place where stars go to turn the hell up. And I see value on Curry points, rebounds, and assists. I have it listed at 38.5 in my numbers. And given that, plus the fact that he is now in MSG, I know it's a tough rebounding team. The Knicks have been a little bit better defensively, though they still deliver a ton of threes. I wouldn't be surprised for like a vintage Curry night for the first time in a long time tonight in New York City.
Yeah, I like it a ton. Jimmy Butler. So Steph is a completely different player now that Jimmy Butler's there, and that's because Jimmy actually has gravity. Steph had no gravity around him whatsoever until Jimmy got here. And I mean, you can just blindly look at this. So he's averaging 39.4 PRA in only 32 minutes. Look, the Warriors aren't getting a dub in MSG with Steph playing 32 minutes. So it's like coming into this is going to be a game where I know it's a back-to-back, but Steph's been pretty well rested recently. Right? Like only played 30 minutes last night. Yeah, and like these like high leverage games, this is like a 34, 35, 36 minute spot that I'd have him for. I'd probably project him for 34 because I guess you got to factor in like a little bit of blowout just for like every game. It's like the NBA, but yeah, I'd probably put him at 34 minutes, and then you could even bump up like this is PRA averaging games with Jimmy. That's like direct correlation to more gravity and stuff like that. Yeah, I don't know. I like that 38 one. Another thing too is that like Cat is just so bad at defending pick and roll actions and stuff like that. And you could probably just put Steph in a pick and roll every game or every rep, and Warriors will generate good offense through that. So it's like they'll keep going to it, and yeah, that's something that they can exploit. So and yeah, like you said, stuff like that does matter, right? Steph gets one game in MSG a year. He's going to be up for it. So
absolutely, and we see it with guys like again like the Stephs, the LeBrons, and the newer era, like the Lucas, even the Anthony Edwardses. Like there are some people who are built for the bright lights, and a situation like this, like again, one time per year in Steph Curry. How many years are we looking at anymore? Like if there's literally say there's 10 games of the 82 that he wants to ball the fuck out in, obviously that number will fluctuate during situations and how things are just going. If he gets hot, he get hot from anywhere. But I guarantee the same way LeBron has MSG circled every single year, Steph Curry has his game in the Garden circled.
Yeah. No, that's actually that's very true. I wonder what this line. Do you have like what lines open up at?
I do. Yes. So let's see.
Curry. What did this line open up with?
At FanDuel, this was 35.5 minus 118 open, but that was like midnight tonight. So that quickly got to 36.5 that opened at 12:01. By 12:46, that was 35.5. That moved up to 36.5. Been sitting there the whole time. And at Pinnacle at 5 a.m., it opened at 36.5 minus 116. It's tilted around that range. But considering like devigging, if you want to even just go with the devigging route, obviously there is a lot of time to see what goes on. But FanDuel being sharper than DraftKings, and obviously Pinnacle being sharper than DraftKings, minus 118, minus 114. It's minus 105 at DK, so that's where I just bet it and locked it in. Obviously, there's time for that to get terrible line value, and Curry is game time decision, though I doubt he doesn't play. But this is one of the few, to me, like don't overthink it spots. Like if this was like 45.5, then yeah, I'm going to start to overthink it. But a manageable number for Curry in this spot, he could score 40 without even factoring in rebounds and assists here.
Yeah, I like it a ton. And like they don't like these Steph Curry's like OG Anunoby, like I don't know if maybe it's Mikal guarding him, especially like OG. Like I don't think the Knicks really have great like off-ball screen navigators either. Like they're all like lanky and like big. So I think that's could be another little angle going for you.
Definitely. Let's hope so.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Do you have any other plays, or is that the only one you got so far?
That's the only one I have so far, but I have my numbers up. I'm looking, so I can keep talking through what you got. If you have anything more you want to talk about, and I'll find one more thing to put out at least.
Yep. Okay. Let's see. Is there any? Let's go game by game. Houston at Indy. Is there any Houston? Okay, Houston props are finally up. Let's see, guys. Drop Houston and Indiana questions if you have any for there, because there is Houston props up. I know. Was there anything I was interested in? I played. Okay, I already played this. It's moved. I guess 365 has a minus 130. I played Halliburton under 9.5 assists on the first show at FanDuel at minus 114. Just curious, what do your numbers say about that?
For Halliburton assists, I have him at 8 flat. So it's actually, I see it 8.5 plus 112 out there, which actually has more value because you're getting the plus money, even though you are losing like that one stat. But I think Halliburton, my numbers have Halliburton under assists at minus 140. Like, let me see, because right now I could simulate, right? So if I'm projecting 8.0 assists, obviously it's going to show value to the under at these numbers. But something that I think is worth mentioning is that sometimes, like, this is a great example, it's under 8.5 plus 110 at FanDuel, but under 9.5 minus 140 at DraftKings. Most people will bite the bullet and, lay the minus 140 at DraftKings because you're getting, one statistic less. But with that being said, the price is the real big thing here. So with those numbers, I'm actually showing a 22% edge at minus 140, but a 25.66% edge at plus 110, because that's where the juice comes into play, even though you are losing that stat. So just some game for you there, that the price is what matters the most, right? Like, in a bigger example, that's obviously not going to happen. But say, like, you had Luka Doncic over, 20 points minus 1,000, and then over 21 points plus 110. Like, it's one more point. Obviously, it's no brainer you'd bet that plus 110. That same theory applies, but just at a lower scale with everything. So if you don't have a way to quantify that, there are some things you can utilize out there. So I definitely recommend, like, Googling and figuring out, like, how to, really calculate expected value, because it's a mistake I see a lot of people make where they'll, be like, oh, it's 8.5 plus 110. It's the only line I can get. Maybe I should just only put 0.75 units on it, not 1 U, because it's not the minus 140. But that's actually wrong. There's actually more value in the 8.5 plus 110. So just some overall, just like game for everybody, that the price matters more, the juice matters more than like the actual number listed. That's what's really going to tell you how much value you have or don't have. And there will be times where you're betting on a less stat, like a one fewer stat or one more stat. But if the odds make up for that difference, then you're making a better bet by, maybe needing one fewer rebound to cash or one fewer assist to cash. But the payout is better over the long run.
What do your numbers say about minus 130 versus the 8.5 plus 110? Just curious.
Where are you seeing a minus 130?
365.
I don't have 365 up because I can't bet there, but let me pull it up.
Is 365? You just don't have an account that's not limited, or?
I live in New York, and 365 does not operate here. But the 9.5 minus 130 is a 25.94%, while 8.5 plus 110 is 25.66%. So the 9.5 at 365 is slightly better than the FanDuel. It's obviously better than the DraftKings. But again, like, if you didn't have 365, your best bet's at FanDuel. If you have 365 and everything we mentioned, your best bet's at 365. So you really got to know your shit, because these are, again, things that we're talking about the long run. And I know a lot of people are going to say, oh, if he gets 9 assists, I'm going to be so mad because I would have won the minus 140. But that being said, you only would have risked 1 unit on the plus 110, where if you would have lost both, you would have lost minus 1.4 units, and you would be in a negative expected value situation. So this is just, again, key for everybody. I see this construed so often. I know people like love to water down their slips and do all that BS. The price is what matters the most.
Yeah, 100%. My brain, honestly, like I like get where you're generally coming from, but like the calculations in front of my head, like I can't tell you. Like, that's why I just asked that question, right? Like, I can't tell you what's a better price, and that's definitely something I need to learn. So I'm sure the more I have you on the show, the more I'll get it. But it's also like you need like some sort of formula in front of you, don't you?
So I utilize a tool called Unabated that like does the simulate for me. So I make my projections. I can upload my projections to Unabated, and then it simulates it through the market and shows me the pricing. Okay. I'm not sure other tools do that, because I've been on with Unabated for almost 2 years now. But like you said, if that's something you haven't really considered, or just for anyone listening, like figuring out the easiest way for you to quantify that, or just a way to quantify that, will absolutely make a difference in the long run. So that's definitely a way to like start leveling up, is start becoming much more price sensitive.
Do you got an Unabated code you want to shout out?
No, I do not. I'm no affiliate program. Just a user who happens to be a big fan. No promo here.
Shit, dude, you got to reach out. You got to. I'll clip this and send it to you, and you can send it to them and be like, code now. Let's see. Fred VanVleet threes. Yeah. So interesting. 2.5. He's not going to be on a minute restriction. We could go to like all games. he's been someone his volume's been great all year. Like he's averaging 7.7 threes. He just shot the ball very poorly. So he's like a positive regression candidate for sure. Even though there's been like so many games, like 46 games. It's like, okay, dude. So yeah, Pacers matchup. I'd like to look for catch and shoot threes and pull up threes. And actually, Shoto, actually off the top of my head, I know this isn't a good bet because Pacers kind of switched back their scheme to limiting the shit out of threes. So just given he hasn't shot the ball great, there's not really going to be anyone missing, I don't think. So it's not like, oh, this dude's probably going to be out, so he's going to see higher usage than normal. I'd probably stay away. I just don't think like -120 is a great price personally with the matchup. What does your number say, Eric?
Because of the late updates to like their props being open, I don't have any projection ran for Fred yet, so okay. I don't have anything there.
Yeah, these words, I think these just opened, so yeah, good time to pounce. Amen Thompson, by the way, he has a great matchup. Pacers have not been able to do anything in the paint, so they've been funneling everything to the paint and have not been able to guard there. So that's something a little bit interesting. Let's see, was there any other questions for this game? What's going on, everyone? Sorry if I didn't, display your messages or anything, but I see you. I see you for sure. Is there anything else I liked here? What are your thoughts on, and probably not Jalen Green, what are your thoughts on Sengun? Actually, never mind, because this number's all over the place, so it wouldn't be something I'd be able to share. I guess, what are your thoughts on Sengun 19.5? Actually, you just said that you don't have Rocket stuff yet.
Yeah, I don't have any Rocket stuff yet.
Okay. I think that's about it for that game. Toronto and Orlando. Do you have any, anything off the top of your head you want to talk about in this game? Because I just don't like. Yeah.
So this is obviously we know like the Magic defense is where like guards go to die. So I think that's actually is a great matchup for Orlando, considering the Raptors guard play is definitely like, obviously Quickly is like all right, and like Barrett is like all right, but they're not, they're no stud guards that are really going to turn up there. I was looking to see if I could get a better price on Barrett, because I've been having some good success at one time backing his assists with Quickly out, but then fading him without. But now at 3.5, it's a little too low where I'd want to back it. But just looking around, like I kind of like RJ. Again, under 3-pointers made. He's not a great 3-point shooter as it is. He does take a lot of attempts, but at -120 at DraftKings for Barrett, under 3-pointers made, that's something that, let me confirm, but I see some value, and I just want to make sure I have the numbers correct. But just by looking at my numbers on the board, I kind of like Barrett under 3-pointers made. So let me confirm that. Yeah, he's only averaging last 10, a medium of 5 attempts. Median of 5 also was last 5. We had 2 for 5 against Orlando, literally when they played in their last round of back-to-back. But, a guy who was like not a 40% shooter, asking to shoot 40%. And also a guy who in better matchups, even against Chicago, didn't hit. Indiana tough didn't hit. Boston tough didn't hit. I think that his blip hit against Orlando last time was a little bit more fluky than it's being led on to be. So I think Barrett under 1.5 threes is something that I want to lock in. -120 at DK.
Yeah, I mean Orlando allows like the fewest threes on the year. I don't know where they're at recently. I guess this is like a pretty small sample size, but and they're still pretty low. Orlando just doesn't like giving up threes. I don't think I've ever taken a 3-point prop over against Orlando, and I don't think I ever will, as long as Jamal Mosley's the coach. So yeah, I can't shot 2 for 3. Cool, that's like very lucky. 2 for 5, I guess you could say, like, five attempts is fine for like a 2-point line or 1.5 line, but I'd say more times than not versus Orlando, I tend to agree that he's not going to hit 2 threes. And they also kind of just like encourage drives to the basket with their scheme. So yeah. Let's see, what do you say you have it projected at?
I have it projected at 1.5. So yeah. I actually see, like, number wise, I am seeing slight value to the over, but considering where I think this is going to move, because I do think this is going to move, I feel comfortable betting the under now, and I think we're going to secure some closing line value at -120. I know he's been, again, his minutes have been up there. He's hit the last 2 times against Orlando, but again, we're talking about games where he went 2 for 3 from 3, then 2 for 5, a situation where they're going to try to limit, and a game that the Magic lost at home against the Raptors. Obviously, they're going to try to not, have that happen again. And Barrett's is not a good enough shooter where I think he's going to like be someone who can like overcome the spot on just five attempts or asking him for some good stuff to happen. So 1.53s, I see a 5.65% edge at -120. So I'm locking it in.
Yeah, I like that. Okay, we have a question. Franz PA. So just played, shot efficiently, only had 2 potential assists, only 26 PA. Like I said, I have terrible. Like I said, I'm like a game better, like a scheme better and stuff. And there's some teams I just don't have feel with, so I just don't have feel with like any of these 2 teams personally. But I probably wouldn't endorse over just looking like 2 potential assists, maybe even like leave like under assists or something. I don't know. Just curious, do you like Franz stuff here?
No, my numbers don't like Franz stuff at all. But like you said, I think I have a good feel for like beating players against the Magic, but like backing Magic players. Like I went through my sheet between, even like Carter, Bancaro, and Wagner. I probably bet them at some capacity like 3 times this entire year. You know what I mean? So not a team that I hone in on.
Yeah, agreed. Oh, J-Man, you said you like the under. Okay, so in agreement there.
Yeah.
Is there any like games that you feel like you have a good feel on personally? Because let's see, we got 18 minutes until an hour. Is there any like games specifically that you think you have like good feel on for the slate?
So looking at the slate, obviously like Bucks Hawks 241 total. You can expect that one to be like a fun shootout with some scoring. I think that probably holds true. 2 fast-paced teams, 2 teams that struggle to defend. But no, my biggest game that I think I'm interested in is really the Warriors-Knicks game, and I know that it's a very popular game from a viewing standpoint from everything, but again, like I think it's not just like the Steph thing. I think Draymond's going to obviously be up for this one. Jimmy has had his beefs with the Knicks with his time with the Sixers. Bulls, Heat. Obviously he wants to win in the Garden. Coming off the back-to-back, I don't think that this is a situation that's actually going to like hinder Golden State. Like I don't think it's really hindered most teams that much in the first place, but for whatever reason, it does, as we clearly know. But I think the Knicks Warriors game could be a spot for a fun same game parlay. I know the Knicks are like on paper a good defensive team, as are the Warriors, but I think given like the circumstances surrounding this one, that total is a little bit low, and I think this could be like a fun game where if you're honestly just backing like the usual suspects, like I think a Josh Hart, if he's good to go. I know he's banging up with some injuries. I think he's live for his usual PRA, as we know, to really hammer the glass, as we know. He gets 10.5 plus 105. So the books are seeing what I'm seeing. 9.5, 130 at FanDuel I actually do like. The Warriors don't really play a traditional center. So I think that it's a game where you can find value with, like, if you're going to go the parlay route and want to have some fun. I think, betting Curry alternate over points, Hart 10 plus boards. And I think, sticking to this is a game where I think if you stick to like the usual suspects, which normally is not smart. Like I think that this is a game where that like kind of like perfect script per se can actually, unwind in perfect script in like the square sense of like, the players that most people are going to be betting on anyway to actually come through. I think this is a game where they actually could come through.
Yeah, I agree. What do you think about? So I was super close to playing Butler's over because I just think it's a great buy. Because if we know Jimmy Butler, right? I mean, this game, we played 19 minutes. They won by 36. He's never going to try in a regular season game like that. Yeah. This game, he played really poorly against Orlando, but I think it was a game that Steph had 55. So it's like Jimmy's also not going to try if his teammates like brought a pace, like dropping 50 and stuff. And then another game against the Hornets, like he's just not going to try against the Hornets. I'm very confident that we get Jimmy trying in this game, but I have 2 concerns about it. And like, look, Jimmy trying is like better than a 17.5 line, like by far. But I do have, like, I think OG Anunoby does match up with him. And I think that, Jimmy's like a physical, he scores based off of like being able to out physical people and stuff. And I don't think that's a good matchup with OG if he's going to try to do that. And also the Steph Curry aspect scares me. Him going off, it's like an easy way for Jimmy to go under. And like, I know you're on his over and I actually agree heavy with it. So, but just what do you think about Jimmy 17.5? Because just seeing 17.5 next to Jimmy's name in a spot where we know he's going to try is super appealing to me.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's a situation where you're gonna, like when we talked about earlier in the show, where sometimes your numbers aren't really going to capture like the full scope of what's going on. Like I project 15.03, so I would see good value with the under. But that being said, like it makes me want to question the under because of what you said, where my thought process of how this game is going to go does correlate with Jimmy probably carrying his load. But again, if you want to look at just like numbers, even with just the Warriors, it's not like he's like taking a ton of shots. Like he's been, getting to the line 6 times, only taking about 10 shots, but 5 for 10, 16. Like it's tough. It's tough. I do agree with your theory though, because there will be times we say, with like role players or maybe not role players, but like that, 2 or 3 levels off of like superstar where, if you are a 20-point per game guy, right? And even though it's a tough matchup, but your line is 18.5, but you're a 20 PPG guy. Like the over is still probably a look, even in a tough matchup. There are spots where they are, over adjusting the number, where then there's value on the under, but there are spots that are over adjusting the number when there's values on the over. My numbers don't think this is a spot for Jimmy, but with that being said, it's not something that I'm running to the counter to bet. I think it actually could be. With my thoughts on the game, how it could actually turn out, I think that no, this is a spot for Jimmy to probably has a good chance of going over.
Yeah, it's a spot for him to try, and that's kind of what you need with the 17.5 line with Jimmy.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So, okay, I want to circle back to the Hawks-Bucks game. Another buy low spot, I think, is Trae Young over 2.5 threes. So Memphis does this thing where they will try to take out a top option sometimes. It's like it's hard to predict when they're going to do it, but they've done it to Dame Lillard, they've done it to Tyrese Maxey, they've done it to a lot of guys, and I was really liking Trae's over, but I stayed off of it because I'm like, okay, I've seen Memphis do this, I'm just gonna play it safe. So and then OKC is also like the same thing, but they'll do it every game if there's a clear-cut number 1 option. Same with Miami. So he's coming off of like 4 brutal matchups, but before that, in like pretty good matchups against the Pistons, 15 threes, 13 threes against the Magic, who, I mean, they'll let you go 1-on-1, but they don't really like you getting up threes. And then 11 threes against the Knicks, 14 against the Wizards, like only 8 against the Bucks. But the Bucks are like a drop coverage team with Brook Lopez out at the center position. So what are your thoughts on Trae to hit 3 threes? What do your numbers say about that? I think that it's like, it's juiced, but I like this line was like juiced 3.5, like before this like rough stretch.
No, I absolutely love it. I see a lot of value. I see like a 31% edge at DraftKings -125, which for me is the best price where I could bet at. -146 at FanDuel, -131 at Penny. So there is like a positive DVIG there. I think that everything you said makes a lot of sense. You're talking about matchups against teams that make concerted efforts to go against slowing down number ones. I know Trae, which is something that you wouldn't expect, is only averaging a median of 8 attempts. And like we know, he's been just terrible at shooting, unfortunately all year long. Hasn't really mattered. Like he's actually been worse at home, but I don't really tend to like buy into those things like all too much. I think that means there's probably a better chance for like regression rather than saying like, oh, like you can't shoot in Atlanta. But I like this spot a lot. I know how Milwaukee likes to cover. It is one of the highest totals on the board. And I think it could be a discount predicated on some of these, tough matchups where he was incapable of succeeding. And, Memphis only took two threes, Oklahoma City 5, Miami 6 and 7 in those 2 matchups, which are low. But then you go back to like Detroit, Orlando, New York, when he was hot and feeling it. We're talking about 11, 13, and 15 attempts. And you're estimated 3 of 15. I know Trae Young hasn't been a guy who you this season where you're 3 of 15 for Trae doesn't seem like he's out of the cards because he's been, not great. But no, I think that this is definitely a worthwhile look. Absolutely. And I honestly need to play it as we speak.
Yeah, sweet. Yeah, no, I'm definitely thinking it too. Just I don't know. The Bucks weirdly haven't been giving up a lot of pull-up threes, but it's just like Brook Lopez. We know how Brook Lopez is, right? He can't move. So I don't know. I'm probably gonna end up playing it too, and I think your numbers give me confidence too about that.
Let's do it.
Okay. Next one, we have a question. Darius Garland over 2.5 threes. So this, I know we just talked about home road and like not liking it. Darius Garland, if he has kind of crazy splits, home road. So they're playing on the road and it's away. He's under in 10 out of 26. You can like look up field goal percentage splits too. Home, he's over in 21 out of 33. So it's like pretty stark difference at this point in the year.
Mm-hmm.
The Bulls matchup, I know that, let's see, above the break threes, you could blindly look at that, I think. You probably want to see pull-up threes for Darius, even though like playing with Donovan, he will get some catch-and-shoot looks for sure. Pull-up has not been there, which isn't great. Let's see, team shooting above the break attempts. Yeah, but the overall above the break attempts have been there a lot for Darius, or for teams against the Bulls have been giving up above the break attempts. So I'd say it's like slightly a plus matchup. Do you have a take on Garland 2.5?
I am right on the number here with like the juice included. I make it 2.9. So I saw like the best number I see is FanDuel. For the over is -115 at DraftKings. So I make it actually minus negative. I get negative 1.65% value with my projection. So to me, that's like a clear pass. I think it is important, like you said, to mention like some of the home road stuff because like when it is this deep in the season, like there is some signal. But again, like obviously you have to like dive into like the full context of like those games to really like kind of determine. But all that said and all that considered, for me it is just a pass, just because of where the juice lines up. But again, if this was 2.5, even money, then I would show value on it and I would bet it. But because it's 2.5 -115 with my projection, I'm personally laying off.
Yeah. Someone had a good comment, no Evan Mobley. And yeah, I think that definitely matters a ton, like a little bit. I looked up, I took Evan Mobley off the court. His 3-pointers per 36 get like a 0.5 boost, so nothing crazy. But I'm glad you mentioned that because I think that does matter. You can look at the makes, right? The makes are going to be good. I don't really care about makes. I just care about volume. He's shooting 40%. It's not like he's going to shoot a higher percentage because Evan's off the court, right? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it's more just if he's going to shoot more. That's the real good.
Yeah. And another thing too. So yeah, I mean that's some pretty good volume though. It really is 8.5. But he's probably not going to play 36 minutes, right? He's only averaging 30, and they're playing a shit team. Cavs like to play their bench against shit teams and limit starting minutes, which is a good approach. Keep them healthy for the playoff run and stuff.
Absolutely.
Josh and Kevin. Who's Josh and Kevin? Josh Hart and Josh Giddey and Kevin Herter. Are you talking about?
Yeah, Kevin Herter and Josh are both game time decisions, so I would assume that's where he's looking.
Those guys won't affect the Bulls, I don't think. They're definitely not impact players. Maybe like them not playing would be like bad because they're like bad defenders. I don't know. Okay, cool. Is there any other leans off the top of my head? I'm just curious. So I was looking at openers last night.
Mm-hmm.
Could you like adjust a line in your model and be like, if it was this line, what is the edge?
I'm more so we'll play around with like the projection than like the line itself.
Okay.
When I simulate with unabated, it simulates across all the books, so I can see if like different lines again. If there's like a -115 versus -105, like I see it all right in front of me anyway. But I'll sometimes like toy with like projections if I think like maybe I like the matchup just like biasly a little bit more. Where I'll be like, all right, this says 2.8, but like let's make it 3. And if I'm seeing value there, then I'll be more inclined to play. I don't do that often. I kind of do it more like out of curiosity's sake rather than out of like trying to like make an excuse for the play something sake.
Yeah. Well, I just want to mention these opening lines sometimes are so bad. I just like I usually don't even like look at them because it kind of makes me mad how much like lines move and it like gets in my head. If I see a line opened here, like mentally I'm like, oh crap, like I already lost value. Don't play it anymore. Even though like you can still have like a good value,
Mm-hmm.
But I just want to say Jared Allen's points without Mobley opened up at 11.5. Like, my gosh, bro, these books are like, and PRA was 24.5. Now it's 28.5 juiced over. FanDuel's at 15.5. So is DraftKings. I mean, that's just crazy, bro. It's crazy that some of these books, like, I seriously wonder, like, what goes like into some of like their thought processes with opening lines. Like, it's like they don't even have like professionals like setting it sometimes.
Well, the thing about openers, which I think just for like some game for you to understand for the viewers out there, because I think that your like thought process is like correct. It's like, how the hell are the books so off market? But the thing to note about openers is they also have the lowest limits. So they don't mind laying a 10.5 shitty line at -110 for a $500 limit. And yeah, they're going to get absolutely hammered in that like 5-minute span, but all for $500 bets, so that when it comes to 10:46 a.m. the next morning and they have a line that's more accurate and the limits are now $1,000 and they're going to be getting action on that game, it's going to kind of offset some of the lower limit action they get. So the sports books need the bettors just as much as we need them too. Like, there are bettors that are better than the sports books. Like, it's proven the number is obviously like less than 1% of like the population, but like they do exist, and there are groups and syndicates that do exist. So the books might have thought they're making a great number, but then they see that X account that they know is a sharp account has then limit jammed that number at opener, and they take the bet, they move the number, and then eventually after they keep adjusting and then the number does not get hit by that group, then they say, okay, this number is probably more accurate, then they raise limits. Can that group then bet again later and try to play some games with the books? Absolutely, happens all the time. But I think the thing to note is, like, yeah, whoever is in charge of setting that line, made that line, it was probably like, okay, let's see what happens. And then, boom, they got hit immediately by some sharps, said, we're wrong. But it's not, we're wrong, now we're screwed and going to get killed for liability. It's, we're literally wrong with the least amount of money that we're willing to take on a bet. So it's okay.
Yeah. Yep. 100%. Sorry, Winter. Winter said, are my comments visible? Yeah. Sorry, Winter. Yeah. Trae Young over. I like threes more than the points for sure with this here. But yeah, I think that's like a good scoring matchup too. So sorry, we just kind of forgot to answer that dude's question. My bad, Winter. Yeah, no, I think you made some good points. I look, if you have a fresh Bet365 account, you could probably make so much money with that thing.
Dude, the value of a fresh 365 account to a real sharp is like honestly probably like 50, 60K. Before you get that shit like washed and dried out, or like an MGM as well. It's probably worth around like 50, 60K.
Yeah. Jimmy Butler, Jimmy Buckets. We talked. We do like Halliburton assists. I gave it out at 9.5 -114 in the first show, but Eric's numbers still like it at 8.5 for plus like 110, I think it was. So, and like the -130 at 365, 9.5. He liked both of those, and I tend to agree. So I mean, obviously, I agree. I fucking bet it myself. So yeah.
And since we talked about that already has moved. Now it's 102 at FanDuel, the under. Okay. So, this game, bro. That's why they all the jokes about the sports bettors and the piss jars, because they sit by their screen all day watching these micro movements that happen. That literally that seconds go by. So yeah, it's a grind, man. It's a grind.
No, it is. It is. Let's see. One last question. This is gonna be the last question, and then Eric asked for a recap, but we can definitely do that. So yeah, let's see. What was this? If Cat doesn't play. Oh, Brunson under 27.5. Yeah, Warriors defense has been tough to gauge for sure. So I don't really have a take on that. They're all over the place. They'll switch it up. They'll be switch heavy, and then Brunson will just shoot pull up twos the whole game, or they'll blitz him. It's like I've been having a tough time gauging them. But pods threes, yeah. So look, unless the Knicks want to play Steph and drop coverage and have them drop 60 on them, I'm sure they're going to have to get Cat up there, moving around. And if Cat's moving around, the defense is going to be rotating a ton. I think pods could maybe get some looks. Let's see, 1.5 threes -130. It does seem a tad short. He'll let it fly. What have the Knicks been doing for catch and shoot stuff? Knicks catch and shoot. Okay, they've been giving up catch and shoot stuff, so I don't hate it. He'll also be a guy who gets drop coverage when he does, get a few pick and because he plays the non-Steph minutes with Jimmy, so he'll get drop coverage there. I guess so it's like with Butler, with Curry. What are the attempts been? 5.7 attempts per game in games with Jimmy and Curry. That's pretty good for a 1.5 line. And I think the matchup is pretty good. What did the numbers say on -130 for you? What are your thoughts?
I see slight value on the under just because it's plus money, but I do make it like 1.4. So it's one plus 105 at DK. I see some value on that under actually. So I like the under from just like again a number standpoint, but I do understand why like the over is in contention. But for my numbers, like given the price, of course, I see only a 5.49% edge at plus 105 at DK with a 1.7 projection. So I would lean toward the under there. I try to get, I know when I have like a 30% edge, it shows that it's not actually a 30% edge, that I'm probably missing something. Like that would be ridiculous. If I could get 30% edges every day and bet them all, I wouldn't be on this show right now. I'd be in Cabo, but I just, it's something I'm running to the window to bet, but I see why you like the matchup. I do like the over. So it makes me like interested that, it is a minus 135 price, but he has been hitting it like with Jimmy, so I understand that a little bit more. But for me, I'm probably not going to be betting any pods, anything. But I understand the thought process.
Yeah, I do too. And he said, should be taking some pulls versus Cat and Mitch and drop, and that's 100% correct. So yeah, I get it, and I think I think like the matchup from a matchup perspective, it's good. It's just you are paying a little bit of juice, so yeah. Cool. Let's see. So we're gonna recap the show. So let's see. My first play was Finney Smith over 1.5 threes. It's minus 125 at FanDuel. Like I said, I played it because of it's the best matchup in the league for Finney Smith, and without Rui and Jordan Goodwin, it's also kind of a significant piece off the bench. I think you can get him to like 32, 34 minutes, and I think you're going to get. I think he takes 5 or 6 pretty quality threes, and if that's the case, I really like him to hit 2. Dunn over 16.5 PRA. He played 21 second half minutes last game, and why I'm using second half is because that was without Norman Powell, without Derek Jones, without Ben Simmons. And he got into foul trouble in the first half. So it's like I have him for 32 minutes. The Suns have just been a terrible defense, allowing a lot of catch and shoot stuff. And I think it should be like 18.5. So yeah, played that. And then Steph Curry over 36.5 PRA was Eric's play. And you want to just quick give a rundown on why you liked it?
Yeah, so I just show value with numbers and make it 38. I also think that given like there are some places that legends want to turn up and play, it's Madison Square Garden. The Knicks defensively are a little bit overrated defensively, and based on my projections and a game that I know Steph Curry is going to want to come out and show up for, even though on the second night of the back-to-back, I think we saw like again a vintage Steph game in Orlando not that long ago, and I think that this is a spot for another vintage Steph Curry kind of situation. So I think the number is a little bit too low considering it's something he's been like crushing. Like back to my LeBron example when I was talking about before, like his number was like 43.5 or something, which he hadn't really been hitting and leading into that game. Blew the doors off. Now you have a situation where Curry has been actually kind of hitting over this number. I expect that to close with some line value. So I make it over. He's been doing very well with the hitting of this number, even with Jimmy, and it's Steph Curry in the Garden. I think that's enough said.
Yeah. Yep. It's like Steph in the Garden. Yeah. The Jimmy aspect is good too. He needs someone who's a threat around him to be able to get freed up. And that's what's been happening. Okay, cool. Before we head out, just want to say, guys, if you are on YouTube, if you do enjoy this content, make sure to give it a like, make sure to subscribe to the channel if you want these streams to keep on going, because we need support to keep on going. So just make sure to take a little bit of time out of your day and do that. It's free way to support. So greatly appreciated from my end if you were to do that. And then Eric, is there anything you want to shout out or say before we end this stream?
No, I just want to say, make sure you subscribe to this channel. What Ty and JG do is amazing, and they're doing it all for you guys. So show them your support. If you have interest in my stuff, you can find me on Twitter at Slime Action, and all my picks, data projections are posted in the Better Process Discord at Better Process on X. So if you want to, mess around with me and some of those stuff, obviously feel free. But the least you can do is hit that like button for Ty. So make sure you do that.
Yep. And I will say what Eric does, the way he bets is like nothing's ever a guarantee to make money, right? But the way Eric bets is like a very safe way to profit long term, right? like what I'm doing, it's not so much projecting. It's like more trusting basketball knowledge, trusting data. And like I trust myself a ton. Not saying like don't trust me. I trust myself, but a lot of people, who think that they know a lot, but and don't project anything, but don't actually know a lot, like are wild cards for being profitable and stuff. But when you really project stuff and you're price sensitive, like how Eric is, the way he bets and the way he gives out bets is like a very safe way to be long-term profitable. Would you agree there?
Absolutely. Like there's a real signal that that's why closing line value matters. Like it's proven the more you beat the closing line, you beat the market. Same thing in stocks. If you're betting on stocks that are consistently beating like the overall market, like you're going to be plus money in the end. And people get so caught up on sample sizes. It's like, no, it doesn't mean 100 bets. It doesn't even mean 1,000 bets. We're talking like thousands of bets of consistently being the closing line. You will find yourself in a profitable situation. And Winter just commented Kyrie out for the season. I just saw from Shams. Kyrie. That's never must say that for anybody. So
damn, that's sad, bro. Kyrie's, man, I love watching Kyrie hoop. Yeah. I really do. Oh man, that stinks.
Absolutely.
Damn. Yeah, the Mavs are cursed. That's your Mavs? Winter, you're a Mavs fan? Oh, dude, Mavs fans have it the worst in the world, bro. My goodness.
Yeah, not
that's actually. Oh my gosh, their GM traded away Luka, and then Kyrie tore his ACL. I used to hate Mavs fans because they beat my Wolves and like did so like in like the most like devastating way. Like every game was close, and Kyrie and Luka just fucking hit everything in clutch time. So I will say I did have a little disdain for the Mavs, but I just feel bad for y'all now, man. This shit is sad.
Absolutely. That's so tough.
Oh wow. Okay, well on that sad note, I guess we're gonna end it. But yeah, just one last reminder, guys. Make sure to like, subscribe, check Eric out at Slime Action, check out Better Process, all that good stuff. So yeah, we'll see you guys tomorrow.